Hello, I am Jeanne Smith, representing the League of Women Voters North Carolina Public Education Action Team. I'd like to speak to you about the importance of informed and committed voters who support public education in this fall election. We are asking you, as a League member, to help by being a public school voter advocate, to be informed and share this information with voters in your community. This presentation will provide an overview about who makes decisions and current issues. I will briefly cover: why do public schools matter? How do they impact local communities? Who is responsible for public education in North Carolina? Who makes decisions related to the policy, implementation, and funding of public education? What are some of the current issues in our state? What can you do to help with the support of the LAT? Since the convention last May, the public education team has held 6 listening sessions across the state. From League members, we learned about the importance of the public schools to the students, families, and businesses in their community, and the number of dedicated teachers and staff. However, there were concerns shared by all areas: teacher shortage, insufficient funding, and eroding public support of our schools. Let us look first at why do public schools matter. The North Carolina State Constitution provides for a unified public statewide system, free and open to all children. Our public schools welcome all children from all backgrounds, all abilities, and from all zip codes. The schools provide lessons for students with different learning styles. They provide students with the tools to succeed academically and socially. Students are prepared for college and careers so that they can succeed personally as adults and become business and community leaders. Very importantly, public schools bring people from diverse backgrounds to learn and work together. Public schools can unite us. They provide the public good. How do the public schools impact our local communities? Most students in K through 12 attend public schools. Overall, it's 84% in North Carolina, 77% in traditional schools, and 7% in charter schools. In many counties, the number is larger, 89% or more. We see this especially in the rural counties. The school systems are tied with the economic health of the community. In 51 counties, it's the largest employer. If we look to the first and second largest employers, then this expands to 85%. Local businesses need educated and skilled employees. Public schools go beyond the traditional subjects to include career and technical education, often working in conjunction with the community colleges for workforce development programs. When a corporation is considering relocation in North Carolina, the business leaders look at the public school systems before many other criteria, such as corporate taxes, when making their decision. In addition, schools act as a community hub, providing opportunities for people to come together and space for local events. The state government is responsible for public education. This is different from most other school systems across the nation. The state determines the curriculum and school personnel. It's responsible for the funding to make this happen. The counties are responsible for the school buildings and other facilities, maintenance and construction of new schools. Recognizing more funding is needed for instruction, most counties supplement the state funding for students and teachers. The federal government provides funding for school nutrition programs and additional support to special student populations. Typically, North Carolina public school funding is 65% provided by the state, 25% by the counties, and 10% by the federal government. To put this in perspective, North Carolina lags behind most states in funding to meet the needs of the students and satisfy the requirements placed on public schools. It is 49th in funding effort, which is a measure of funding in terms of state wealth. It is 48th in funding level. This accounts for state and local funds used for student per pupil allotments. 38th in terms of teacher pay. For beginning teacher, North Carolina ranks 42nd. The average teacher salary does not provide a living wage. Teachers make 25% less than other employees with a similar level of education. In 2023, 11.5% of the 90,000 teachers left North Carolina classrooms. This data shows that North Carolina is underfunding public education. Funding as a percent of the state budget has steadily declined. In 1970, it was 54.5%, but declined to 39% in 2023. Who makes decisions about policy and funding for public education? Many elected officials impact public education and determine its viability. Therefore, when voting in an election, we should know each candidate's position on public education. This may take extra investigation on our part. Let us start with the North Carolina General Assembly, since they have the major authority. We elect North Carolina senators and representatives who create state school laws on what is taught, how school is administered, salaries, and oversight boards. So the North Carolina General Assembly is also responsible for funding. The General Assembly, along with the governor, appoints members of the State Board of Education, which makes rules and regulations for the enacted laws. We elect the Superintendent of Public Instruction, who heads the Department of Public Instruction, which is in charge of implementing the laws, rules, regulations, and administrating state funds. The superintendent is the secretary and chief administrative officer of the State Board of Education. The lieutenant governor is a member of the North Carolina Board of Education and the Board of Community Colleges. The governor starts the budget process each year by recommending a comprehensive state budget, which includes education. He chairs the Education Cabinet and convenes Education Task Force. He has the visibility to promote public education. Elected officials are involved. We can look to the Leandro funding case to see how the courts play a role. In our communities, the Board of Education is responsible to educate the students in the school district based on the laws and regulations set by the state and federal government. They hire the teachers and staff based on state allotments, provide school lunches, bus transportation, school facilities. They administer funding, but with limited flexibility on how the money can be spent. The school boards do not have the power to tax. The Board of County Commissioners' decision-making is involved in funding. Counties must fund the new school buildings and maintain the existing ones. If a bond referendum is needed to pay for new facilities, this board will determine the amount to take to voters. Knowing that the state does not adequately provide funding, they provide supplements for teacher salaries or per pupil spending, but these vary greatly by thousands of dollars county to county. Much of the variation is related to tax base. Some is related to support of public education by the commissioners. In the federal government, the U.S. senators and representatives determine the laws and funding for nutrition programs and those that impact special populations, students with disabilities, from low-income families, and English learners. I would like to note that private schools and homeschooling are administered by a different division, the Division of Non-Public Education under the Department of Administration. There are very few requirements. There is no oversight by the North Carolina Board of Education. What are the current issues facing public education right now? These have been tumultuous times for North Carolina public schools. Yes, the impact of COVID is still felt. League of Women Voter members across the state highlighted these concerns. Teacher vacancies. The most important factor for student success is a qualified classroom teacher, and yet the number of teacher vacancies is at an all-time high. This is due to experienced teachers leaving the field and the low number of new teachers coming out of college education programs. Why? Low salaries, extra teaching responsibilities, additional administrative duties, and the climate of distrust. Chronic underfunding of public education by the state. With the Leandro case, the North Carolina Supreme Court repeatedly found that the state is failing to provide a sound basic education for all North Carolina children. Insufficient support for children with special needs. Insufficient early childhood education resources for children and their families. The recent education laws that put emphasis on social issues versus student achievement and opportunities. The huge expansion of opportunity scholarships to private schools has shown that state funds are available, but that the General Assembly is choosing to fund private schools, which have very limited accountability, rather than adequately funding public education. It's a matter of choice, not availability of state funds. In the 2024 elections, we want citizens to be public education voters. The support of public education issues can be a motivation to turn out to vote. As League of Women Voters, you are in a special place to help the public be informed and committed. Since so many elected officials impact policy and funding, the public needs to know where they stand. We can be the ones asking the candidates about their positions and support of public education issues in candidate forums and events or elected officials' town hall meetings. We also have the great tool of Vote 411. We can assess where local officials stand based on how they voted for election laws or related to funding. The voting record is easily found on the North Carolina General Assembly website. We can share information about public education with our community, use social media as well as letters to the editors and newspapers, provide information about public schools at voter registration events, collaborate with other nonpartisan, nonprofit organizations. We can work together to amplify our results. We urge you to participate in a social media campaign right now on teacher vacancies. Information can be found in the recent newsletter. Our state public education LIT can support you in this effort. Please contact us by email at communications@leagueofwomenvotersnorthcarolina.org. We can help with candidate questions. As examples, we can share our letters, emails to elected officials on certain topics. We can provide internal reports and updates or recommend reliable resources which provide a balanced perspective. We also invite you to participate in the monthly meetings, which are held on the fourth Wednesday of each month, 5 p.m. via Zoom. We have a team that shares their commitment and experience to make public education stronger in North Carolina. Thank you.